The hallway buzzed with the chattering of students rushing to class, their footsteps echoing off the freshly mopped floors. Among them moved a man whose presence most didn't notice unless someone slipped on a banana peel or spilled a cup of coffee. His name was Marcus Reed, a quiet janitor in his mid-30s. Tall and lean with tired eyes that still carried a glimmer of something unfathomable. Some called him Mr. Mop, others simply whistled past him, heads high in pride or ignorance. He didn't mind, was used to being invisible. Marcus worked at Crestmore Academy, a prestigious private high school in the heart of Boston. Known for its ivy-covered walls and elite students who came from families with names that echoed in boardrooms and political halls. He wore navy blue coveralls, pushed his cart of tools and brooms, and kept mostly to himself. But what many didn't know was that after his night shift, Marcus rushed home to prepare breakfast for his 6-year-old daughter. Lily, pack her lunch, and walk her to the bus stop with a smile that masked exhaustion. She was his world, his life. It was simple, maybe too simple for the kind of intelligence he quietly held. Years ago, before tragedy struck, Marcus had been a linguistics scholar, fluent in 6 languages with a promising future in academia. But when his wife died suddenly from a brain aneurysm, leaving him a single father, everything changed. Dreams. Took a back seat, sold his books, moved into a tiny basement apartment, and took the first job that gave him steady hours and benefits a janitor at Crestmore. The students saw only what they wanted, a man with a mop, cleaning their mess. Some were kind, most weren't. One afternoon, while he scrubbed graffiti from a locker, a group of seniors gathered nearby, laughing loudly. Among them was Dylan Hastings, son of a state senator, brash, arrogant, and always seeking attention. "Hey, janitor," Dylan called out, waving a piece of paper in the air. His friends chuckled. Marcus turned slowly, his hand still gripping the rag soaked in cleaner. "You look like you could use a raise," Dylan sneered, flashing a smug grin. "Tell you what, translate this document and I'll give you my months." "Salary should be what? Peanuts to you, right?" His friends burst out laughing. The paper had strange characters, complex and ancient. Marcus took it without a word, his eyes scanning the symbols for a brief moment. Then he looked up, not angry, not humiliated, but calm, almost amused. "You sure about that offer?" he asked, his voice low. "Smooth." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "Dead serious. Let's see what Mr. Mop can do." There was silence for a moment. Then, in perfect fluid Mandarin, Marcus translated the entire passage. The students stared in disbelief. And then, switching gears, he translated it again, this time in Russian. Then in German. Then in Japanese. Dylan's grin vanished. The hallway went dead quiet. "I studied comparative linguistics," Marcus said, handing the paper back. "This is a poem by Li Bai. Beautiful, really. Too bad it was wasted on a joke." No one laughed now. Dylan looked like he'd been slapped. The girls whispered, "Wait, who is this guy?" From that day on, the rumors spread. Teachers whispered in the break room. A few curious students started asking Marcus about languages. One boy asked if he could help with his Spanish project. Another brought in a French assignment. Marcus never charged a dime, just smiled and helped, always going back to his mop. When he was done, one teacher, Mrs. Albright, noticed his brilliance and approached the principal. "We're wasting a treasure," she said. "He shouldn't be cleaning. He should be teaching." But Marcus declined the offer of a teaching role. "My daughter still needs me home early," he explained. "Maybe someday." Word reached the school board. One day they invited Marcus to speak at Career Day, dressed in the same overalls. He took the stage in the auditorium. Students rolled their eyes at first. But when he spoke about loss, sacrifice, and the power of language, something shifted. His story wasn't just heard, it was felt. He told them how he once dreamed of working for the UN as a translator. How he had to give that up to be a father. How sometimes life reroutes us, but doesn't reduce us. Greatness, he said, isn't in what you wear or where you work. It's in how you carry yourself through the storm. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Dylan stood at the back, biting his lip, unsure whether to clap or crawl under the chair. And for the first time, students started calling him Mr. Reed. But that wasn't the real climax of the story. Not yet, because one act of kindness, one moment of recognition, was about to ripple further than Marcus ever imagined. The next morning, something felt different at Cressmore Academy. Marcus arrived at his usual hour just before sunrise, when the corridors still whispered yesterday's silence. He moved through the halls with the same quiet grace, but students now greeted him with nods, smiles, even waves. A few younger ones approached nervously to say thank you. He didn't know what had shifted. It was overnight until lunchtime. He was changing a flickering light bulb in the faculty lounge when Mrs. Albright burst in. Phone in hand, eyes wide with disbelief. "Marcus," she said breathlessly, "you're trending." He blinked. "I'm what?" "Someone recorded your career day speech. It's gone viral. Over 2 million views since last night." She turned the screen toward him. There he was, standing in front of a packed auditorium in his navy blue overalls, translating poetry in 5 languages, speaking of sacrifice and hope. The comments section was flooded with words like humbling, inspirational. This man should be teaching at Harvard, and I cried watching this. Somewhere in the middle was a post that read, "This janitor taught me more in 10 minutes than my $60,000 year tuition ever did." Marcus sat down slowly, stunned. He had never wanted attention. But in that moment, he saw something bigger happening. The world wasn't just reacting to him. They were resonating with the idea that every human being has a story, struggle, a strength that isn't always visible. By afternoon, news vans appeared at the school gates. Journalists wanted interviews. Former university colleagues, who hadn't spoken to Marcus in years, reached out, offering support, praise, even apologies. An old professor called, voice trembling, saying, "You were always brilliant, Marcus. We failed you when we should have. Helped you?" Offers flooded in teaching positions, guest lectures, scholarships for Lily, book deals. One university offered to pay for a recertification and tenure-track position on the spot. A national news network invited him to appear on their morning show. Even a major tech company offered him a role in language training for their AI division, but Marcus hesitated. It's not because he was afraid, but because he was grounded. That night, sat on the worn carpet of his tiny apartment, helping Lily with her reading. Her giggles, the way she rested her head on his shoulder, meant more to him than any camera flash or pay raise.
"Oh well."
When she asked if people were being nice because of the internet, he smiled gently. "They're remembering that even grown-ups can learn," he told her. "Sometimes we forget that kindness is what makes us smart." The next morning, instead of rushing into fame, Marcus went back to work like always. But this time, he had help. Dylan, the very student who mocked him days before, showed up before class, holding a mop. "I know it's not enough," he mumbled, "but I was a jerk and I'd like to help." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I saw the video," Dylan added. "Then I talked to my mom. She said you translated her favorite Persian poem perfectly." "I didn't even know she had a favorite poem." For the first time, Marcus laughed. "Grab the bucket," he said. More students joined throughout the week. Some helped clean, others sat with Marcus during breaks, asking questions about life, about loss, about language. What began as mockery had turned into mentorship. But the most unexpected twist came one evening when the principal called him in. "There's someone you should meet," she said. In walked an elderly man with silver hair, a cane, and eyes that twinkled with memory. He introduced himself as Dr. Simon Bennett, former dean of the Ivy Arbridge Institute for Global Studies, a place Marcus once dreamed of working before life rerouted him. "I saw your story," the man said, "and it reminded me why we started this institution. Not for fame, not for profit, but for voices like yours." He pulled out an envelope. "I'd like to offer you an honorary position on our Global Linguistics Board. Your story and your heart have done more for education than most textbooks ever could." Marcus was speechless, but the most moving moment came a week later at a school assembly. Without warning, the principal called Marcus on stage. Lily, holding a bouquet of daisies, appeared from the side, and the entire school stood to give him a standing ovation. Tears welled in his eyes. not from pride, but from gratitude. For once, the world saw not a janitor, not a man in overalls, but a father who gave up everything and still gave more. He stepped to the mic, voice trembling. I never wanted recognition. I just wanted to do right by my daughter. But maybe doing the right thing is what ends up inspiring others. So here's what I'll say. Every person you walk past has a story that could change your life. Don't miss it just because. It's wrapped in something you didn't expect. He stepped down to thunderous applause. Today, Marcus splits his time. Mornings with Lily, evenings teaching virtual language classes, weekends giving talks on compassion and education. And yes, he still mops the floors from time to time, not because he has to, but because it reminds him where he came from. His journey has become a symbol not of rags to riches, but of richness and humility. His story reminds us that kindness, quiet strength, and wisdom are sometimes found in the most overlooked corners. So the next time you walk past someone you think has nothing to teach you, pause. Listen, you might just be in the presence of a silent genius.